Hey everybody, my name is Robert and I am here to talk to you guys a little bit about Lord of the Rings strategy. And to start off, I think something needs to be said about Lord of the Rings in general, and that it is a very difficult game. There's a lot of things that make it difficult, but just categorically, it's hard. So there have been some things that I've been experimenting with over the last several months as I've ratcheted up my level of play that I've noticed have helped me considerably to improve the reliability of my performance and ultimately my success within the game. And that is to play to the number of players you have in the game. And what that essentially means is that you need to focus on your priorities. And what are those priorities? Well, there are four of them in my view, and these are the things that you're almost universally going to have to deal with in the course of any Lord of the Rings quest. And they are, by relative importance, questing, and that has to do everything from your quest cards that you're going to progress through to locations you travel to, and then ultimately threat itself. And that is probably the most important thing, because if you aren't good at that, it has the greatest potential to just kick you right out of the game, lickety-split. So you need to be good at that. The second thing I think you need to worry about is fighting enemies. Of course, these are the only things that are going to come at you, literally engage with you, and try to tear you to pieces. So you have to be good at dealing with them. The third thing, very important, is threat itself. Now, we kind of already mentioned that in the form of questing, but I'm talking about your threat meter, because no matter what you do, that thing is always going to be ticking up, and there are plenty of things in the game that are going to accelerate how quickly it ticks up. And the final thing that you have to worry about are the random variables that the game just throws at you just because you're playing. And that's shadows effects, those are when revealed effects, that's travel to effects, and then of course the infamous treachery cards. You have to be ready to deal with all those things, and that is the fourth and final thing that you have to really worry about. Ceteris paribus, all things equal, generally speaking, all that good stuff. So let's look at who's good at dealing with those kinds of things. Well, when it comes to questing, I think it's a foregone conclusion to say Spirit is the best sphere to deal with anything and everything related to that. Next, in terms of finding enemies, well, there's a sphere that has a sword as its icon. So I think it's safe to say that that's the sphere of choice. That's tactics, of course. And what is good with dealing with your threat? Again, it's probably Spirit, just because they have cards like Elrond's Council, Galadrim's Greeting, that kind of thing. They are more or less the sphere to go to when you need to deal with those things. And last, and certainly not least, the fourth element of the game, how are you going to deal with those random things? Well, I'm sorry to say, it's Spirit again. Even if it's just because of the hero Eleanor or Test of Will, all those kinds of things, Spirit has the tools you need in order to cancel things out of hand, cancel them as they're revealed, and just hopefully get them out of your way so you can get on to better and more interesting things. So, given that we have two spheres covering the four basic elements of the game that are generally going to cause problems for you, what does that mean in terms of playing to the number of players you have in the game? Well, in my line of experience, that means that if you're going to have two players playing this game, generally speaking, you're going to want one person playing Spirit or a mix of Spirit and something else, predominantly Spirit that is, and then the other person playing Tactics to deal with the enemies. And what does this allow you to do? Well, more than anything, it just allows you to focus. It lets the players know ideally what their role is supposed to be and what they should pay attention to whenever problems arise. This is sort of like if you're playing in a role-playing game, or even if you want to harken back to any potential World of Warcraft type of experience where you're trying to put that five-man team together and you know, hey, I need a tank, hey, I need a healer, hey, I need some DPS guys. You need the right ratio of those things, but ultimately there are priorities that have to be satisfied first. And in my opinion, that means Spirit and Tactics. But let's say you have more than two people playing. What does that mean for you? Well, that means you can bring in those DPSers and those control people if you wanted to, continue that analogy there. And those are, of course, going to fall into the two other spheres that haven't really been mentioned yet, lore and leadership. What's lore and leadership generally good at? Well, they're both good at buffing, respectively, one side of the fundamentals game. Lore, of course, really good at accelerating card draw. Leadership, really good at buffing not only character statistics, but resources. So with all of those things now in play with 3 players and, of course, 4 players, they can supplement everything that you're doing with those 2 basic spheres. A really good example that I've experienced recently was I generally play 2-player games, but whenever I'm playing 3 or 4, whenever somebody is just doing their kind of respective niche role, it can make a world of difference. For example, I more often not play a tactics deck, but whenever I have somebody who's playing lore who can kick just a phenomenal amount of card draw in my direction, that makes a world of difference because, of course, you have the tools you need to deal with the problems at hand. And, of course, if you have them at hand, then you're just that much more likely to be successful and not have like a 20% win probability or something like that, which has happened. I think we've all played the Massing out of Asgalia. That is just a crazy scenario. So just to recap, you want to focus on the primary spheres that are going to cover most of the basic fundamental needs that are within the game. And then if you have those surplus players, then you can have them help you out, provide those support roles that are going to give you the extra mileage you need to get ahead and, more importantly, stay ahead consistently. So that's it. I would like to give a special thank you to 2 people in particular, first of which is Philip Burkholder, who I've played with a lot, who's really helped me think of this idea and really cement it into a thesis. And then secondarily is Stephen Woolley, who I've bounced enough ideas off of his head from time to time to really cement this. So those are my 2 cents initially to help you guys get a little bit better at this game if you're not already, and hopefully I'll be joining you again in the near future to talk to you about more Lord of the Rings tips.